Hi, in this video we're going to be exploring the Morph Tool. Now the Morph Tool is Archicad's answer to the freeform object. This is something that Archicad users were deeply desiring for years and years, and it was finally offered. Unfortunately, I think that a lot of users aren't really taking full advantage of the Morph because it can be a little intimidating, a little frustrating if you don't have a good way to organize your work and approach it. So hopefully we can find some ways that you can be successful using the Morph Tool and have some fun with it. Now, one of the most important things is to create a couple of sections. I have a section here and a section here. I'll open those. So I have a couple of tabs up here. And then the other thing I generally do is I create a marquee, multi-level marquee, and I hit Shift F3. That's to include everything in the marquee and limit the view to just that area. So now I have a great way to work with a morph. Let's go ahead and start. I'm going to use this geometry method, which is called the box method. And if I just select two corners and I give it a height, 2 feet is fine, then that creates the morph, and it has a height of 2 feet. I also can just draw a chain of lines, which are actually edges. I can do a rectangle, a rotate a rectangle, and so forth. And I can also do a revolve. Several different options to get started. It really doesn't matter how you start. And now I'm going to go into 3D. So I just click the tab. And it's important to just click the tab so that it remains, that the view continues just to look in that particular region. If I close it and redo it, I have to keep recreating that marquee. So here's the morph. And now I can see that morph in a couple of different views. I could label this section front or side if you chose to do that, but it doesn't really matter, just so that you have a way of looking at this particular morph. Now I'll go back to 3D, and some of the basic commands are going to be using the pet palette. So these are our standard transforms that we've been using on a lot of different elements. The pet palette commands that are unique to the morph are the push pull, the tube, bulge, offset angle. This is the pencil tool that allows us to sketch right on top of the geometry, and we also have a way to modify the faces. Let's just do the basic push pull. So if I start here at 0, I can just type in 10 inches, and now it's expanded 10 inches. And again, I like to work, I'm going to measure with M, and you can see I've gone exactly 10 inches from where I started. You'll see the value of having these views so that you can get precise information and helps you to lay out some of the geometry. So that's the push-pull. So let's look at some of the other commands. We have the bulge, where wherever you start your center, you create a arc, and then you can bulge in or out to the degree that you'd like. So that tool works. It's a little challenging to use, but it does have its place. We can also offset the edges of the surface, and that can be an explicit value, or you can just eyeball it. And it's okay to eyeball your morph if you're just trying to capture a general shape or something that represents it. It's a little bit different than true CAD, although you can make it as precise as you want. So up to you, just depends on the circumstances. Now, another important thing here is that when we have another command, we have this white arrow tool. We have the black arrow, which selects the entire morph, and we have the white arrow, which selects elements of the morph. Now that's too much work to go up there and select that. So what we do is we hold Shift and Control, turns our cursor into the white arrow, and now I can select individual elements. So in this particular case, I've selected this edge, if I use the move tool, I can move that and go up exactly, say 2 feet, and I've moved that edge up 2 feet. I can select the entire face and I can move that face, say 1 foot, which is very similar to using the push-pull. Just depends on what you're trying to accomplish, which one makes more sense. You can also move individual nodes with, if I'm holding my left mouse button and I'm on a node, I'm going to get these two options. One is to move the node and the other one is to chamfer or fillet that corner. So fairly straightforward. Now, similar to SketchUp, we have the pencil tool, and when we take and draw, let's get on the right tool. I want the polygon. I'm on this face and I'm going to this face. Now I've sketched an edge on this face and I can push and pull again, but now it's going to separate the faces and I can push and pull these now separately. So this is a, powerful feature, and it's basically it's an idea that came to us from the SketchUp world, and Graphisoft has adopted it in its workflow. And it does a nice job. The problem with the push-pull, well, there's nothing wrong with the push-pull. It's just, it's hard to get the geometry to be what you want. It's fun to make little odd shapes, but using the push-pull can be a little challenging. So to create something that's really, if I wanted to create a stapler, for instance, and I was going to start by just pushing and pulling, it'd be a little tedious, and I think you'd be a little frustrated. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Go back to plan and give you a couple of other pieces of information that I think you'll find helpful. One of them is that you can really take any object in Archicad. So I'm just going to use this beam as a complex profile just to make the point. I'm going to go to my marquee. Here it is. And an important way of working is to notice that you can convert this to a morph. And so that was a beam, and now it's a morph. And now I can have access to this in a very subtle way to start adjusting all of the surfaces just the way I want. So it's often a good idea to begin with other types of elements that allow us to simplify our workflow and to get the basic object there, and then we can just tweak it. So that's an important way to work. Now, another important thing to do is to sketch on the sections. So let's, I mentioned a stapler here a second ago. Let's go into Google and let's find a stapler. Images. See if we can find a basic stapler, and we really want a side view. See if we can find one. Oh, that's one type of stapler, and we could do that. Let's try this. We won't do the whole thing, but let's get started. So I'm going to copy this image, go back into Archicad, paste that image. I'll resize it. So I can say I want this to be, I don't know, 3 inches. And now I can begin to create a morph. And in this case, I'm going to use the edges. And I'll just start creating some of the basic shapes. I'm going to use my pet palette. I can get some of these curves. So this is a good way to work. Lots of different strategies, but this is a strategy. You can see I have the basic lines there. So, you know, I could work my way all the way around. Another way I like to work, and maybe a little bit more CAD-like, is to, I'm going to hit backspace to redo that. I want to get this edge kind of at an angle. What I do is I draw all my straight lines, and then I fill it, and I kind of guess on the radius. And this gives us really nice geometry. Another way to do it is to do a 3-point curve. And it just depends on how careful you want to be. So this is not perfectly tangent. This is perfectly tangent. For what we're doing, you know, it probably doesn't matter that much. So let me just kind of quickly rough this out. So what I'm doing here is I'm just getting straight lines. And now I'll go back with my pet palette and just give each of these a little bit of curvature. And I'm, you know, for this example, I'm not getting too carried away, and it just depends on, you know, if this is literally going to be a staple on a desk in a model, then, you know, this is clearly enough detail. But I do like to work with circles and arcs to start with, if I am interested in getting, you know, real accurate geometry. And a good way to work is to use the trim, which is control, using my mirror commands and my intersection commands, all of those things. So, okay, there's that basic shape. And now I can just magic wand this and create a morph. So, oops. So there's a morph. Select that morph and get this inside circle. Looks like I have some errors here. So hitting the I for intersection just to make sure these curves are well done. And I'm having a hard time getting it to finish that shape. So I'm going to see if I made a mistake in that. Huh. So there's that. And for whatever reason, it's not. There we go. So now I have that morph and that morph. And I can select them both. And I'm going to do something new. I'm going to do a Boolean operation, and I'm subtract. Down here it says from which to subtract. This is the one I want to subtract. And we cannot subtract 2D elements from one another. So we're going to go into 3D. And I'm going to push and pull this. I'll just push it and pull it in both directions. And now that's a cutter. Hitting shift to select both, subtract. So now I've got that profile. So, and I can select lines and hit delete. I can hit circles, hit all, Control A, hit delete. So now I'm left with just the morph and the image. So let's see if we can't make this a little bit easier to see. Let's see what happens here. We will go and we'll take the color fill off, or we can do a cover fill that has a transparency to it. Let's see if that works. Yeah, that's nice. And we go back to 3D and let's extrude this up. Let's say the stapler's 1 inch. And now it's probably a good idea to use the pencil tool, and we're going to run across the shape, separating these. Comes down over here. Take these, curve them. Now if I go back to 3D, we can push and pull this. And again, now we're just kind of doing it by eye. And using these same strategies, we can decide just how much detail we want to get in. So that's a good way of, creating your geometry. And now if you wanted to go back, you could, clean this up, improve it, simplify it, whatever you want to do. So one thing you'll notice is that because we're drawing the side, it's a little frustrating because it doesn't want to go all the way over. So let's talk about rotating in 3D. And you got to do this at the right time or you start to lose this ability to trace, but let's assume that we've traced all that we need to. I like to create a slab. And this slab is just used to rotate elements properly. So if I select that morph and hit F6, F6 is my rotate. And now if I click and hold and not release until I've got the orientation of my rotation established. So there's my second click. Actually, that's the wrong way. So I'm going to hit F6. I want to rotate about this. And I'm just going to go 90 degrees. And that makes the stapler a little easier to maneuver. But again, we lost our tracing ability. But there it is. Okay. And so what we could do here is we could split this morph with, so that's S for split, draw this line and delete that, and then mirror this. And then we can Boolean union. And now we've captured the extra detail on both sides of the stapler. And I want to delete those faces so I can see through the stapler. And so that's a nice way to work. Now we do have this parting line through here, but we do have the opportunity to use the, actually it caused a problem. Let's see. Yep, not going to be able to do that. So if I do use the mirror tool, I'm going to be stuck with that extra edge, which may or may not be a problem for you. But that's one way to work. Yeah, so I don't love that. But that prevents you having to do that geometry both times. And if you could actually just copy the surfaces that are from this edge, and so let's undo. Let's just do that real quick. So if we wanted to copy this, now we'll just delete that, flip that over, and stick it on there. And we'd probably want to split this as well so it's symmetrical. Another good way to work. Okay. And then we can Boolean union that, and that probably is preferred way to work. I lost my marquee because I wasn't being careful. Let me reestablish that. There it is. Another thing you can do is select this face and fillet that. And it worked for most of the edges, which is good. Some of the edges were a little small, so it gave us that warning. Here I'm going to select that face, hit fillet. Do the same thing. And these fillets really add a lot of detail to the model. Okay. If we wanted to just grab this section here, again, I'm using the white. Now it is a little bit of a problem with Archicad when you zoom in too close, sometimes it disappears, which can be a little frustrating. And I unfortunately have to get all of these guys. I can, let's see if I can make this work. Oh. So yeah, you're gonna have to get all of those edges. Let me be careful. And we'll do 2.5 because it's a nice big radius, and I'd have to do the other side. So you go on and on with this, but that gives you one way of working with the Morph tool. And again, if you were just doing this with straight up pushes and pulls, you'd get a little frustrated. Now I'm gonna go ahead and delete that and show you some other ways of working. So I'll get rid of the stapler. Sometimes I will, let's say I need to create a frame or something. It might be easier to start in a section. And, you know, I like to do my layout with lines. be very accurate with my dimensions. Just did a frame like this for a project. And using lines allows you to be a lot more accurate than you would be just trying to draw directly with the morph. And I'll just get close here. And let's go ahead and put another strut here. Run this out. And we'll have this one good to go. And now we'll sketch these three morphs using the magic wand. And now when we go to our marquee, we're actually not going to see that morph because I need to expand my 3D to include the surface along this edge. And now we're going to see it. So when you sketch a morph, planar morph in section, it's going to draw directly on the plane, which is fine. And we can move it in if we want or not. Doesn't really matter. And then I can just push and pull these. And maybe they're all different dimensions. And so their backs planes are all the same, but I can go into 2D. And get them all centered up. And this one would likely want to be a little narrower. We'll bring both sides in so it's symmetrical. And I'm not doing it. I went the wrong way. Okay, so now everything works well. And you got a nice frame here, and then I can group this, right mouse, display order, nope, not display order, Boolean options, union. If it makes sense, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but now that can be one morph, and I can duplicate that frame quite easily. And it may be that we want to put a roof over this. So if we go to this plane, we can draw some more lines. And whatever this needs to be, I'm just getting something roughed out. Create the morph. Go into 3D. There it is. Pull it across. And in plan, here I want to take the cover fill off so I can see through it, and then I can use a move tool, take the center of here, F5, and I like to use, the shortcut is a semicolon. Well, I'll just do it the easy way. I'll draw a construction line, F5, line up to that center, and now I have a centered in plan. Go to 3D. As you can see, it's quite easy to create some complicated, detailed elements that are accurate, CAD accurate, but they look great too. So this is another good way to work. A couple other things to share with you. So I can select this face. If I select that face, I can change the surface of that surface. I can change the material of that surface. I also have the ability to let's see, where is that? Give me just a second. Can't find it. What I'm trying to do is find the commands that allow me to adjust the surface origin and so forth. I don't do it very often. Yep, we'll have to come back to it. But there are commands that allow us to drag the center of the surface, rotate the surface. Boy, a little frustrating. Okay. Give up. Gotta be here. Anyways, sorry about that. So I can change the material of the whole element and make that steel. Copy the preferences. Better to do it this way. Or face by face. Okay. So lots of things are possible. Let's do a quick revolve. I think that that is also let's see if we can find a side view of an interesting pot. Not that interesting. I'll just take this. Okay, so this one isn't that interesting, but nonetheless, it'll give us the concept. So copy image. Not copy the right image. This one. Yeah, that particular website's not letting me copy, but okay, this one's really basic, but the concept will be good. Paste that in. Resize. Make this 24 inches. Rough out a center line. And I like to, so I know this is going to come out square to here, come down to here. Draw a circle from 3-point circle here, here, here. Now I'm going to go to the revolve select the center line and then the direction, at 360 degrees. Now I have a pot. Now this bottom didn't turn out so well. I really want to flatten that out. But if we look at the 3D view, there's our pot. So, however, it would be better if we hold this back. Let's fix it. And make sure that overlaps, clean that up. And now we'll do another revolve, but this time we'll have a hollow section. We'll use this. And there's our pot. And now then we just use rotation, and that's why we have this little guy, because it's easy to get this. And I'm going the wrong way. Then we can put it on the surface here. And we've got a nice pot. But more than anything, it just gives you an understanding of how to go about creating different elements and continuing to improve them. I think I'll stop there. And we may do another program like this on the Morph tool, but it gives you an idea of how to start. The rotation cube is important. 2 sections using the area marquee. All of these things working together to help you create a process that allows you to use the Morph tool successfully. So thanks for watching.